Okay, today I'm going to go over the braided cable ear warmer for you. Our instructions say to use a size 7 straight needle, but we are going to be using a size 9, and that works out perfectly. It actually makes it a little bit wider for you to cover your ears a little bit better. So the pattern is laid out a little bit differently than what you're used to. You'll see if you look at it, it says row 1, comma 5, then row 2, 4, 6, 8, row 3, and then a row 7. So you kind of have to jump back and forth a little bit throughout the pattern when you're reading it. Basically, row 1, you're going to knit 22 stitches, then you move down to row 2, where it's knit 5, purl 12, knit 5. Go to row 3, which is where we do our first cable. It's a cable 8, so that means you'll be slipping 4 stitches onto your cable needle, holding them to the front, knitting the next 4, and then knitting the 4 from the cable needle. Then you're going to knit to the end of the row. Now you look here, where's row 4? Row 4 is up here with row 2, which is just knit 5, purl 12, knit 5. You go up again for row 5. Then we come back down for row 6. Row 7, we do the back cable, which is slip 4 onto your cable needle, hold to the back of the work, then knit the next 4, knit the 4 from your cable needle, knit across the rest of the row, and then remember it's an 8-row pattern, so we have to go up here again to row 8, the work knit 5, purl 12, knit 5. You're going to repeat rows 1 through 8 until the piece measures 16 inches. I like to give it a little bit of a stretch to reach those 16 inches because you don't want it too tight on your head and you don't want it too loose as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and I will show you how to do the cabling. Okay, so this is what your piece is going to end up looking like. Your very first row is going to be a little bit on the funny side, because we're going to sew the 2 ends together, so don't worry about that. And you can see we have a 5-stitch row of garter stitch on each side of our cable, and our cable makes a little braid. That's why we shift to the front, shift to the back, okay? And by alternating them, you get this nice braid cable. So I've gone ahead and I've done rows 1 through 2, and now I'm going to show you how row 3 works with our first cable. So I'm going to knit the first 9 stitches. Seven, 8, and 9. Now I just scooch these up on the needle so they don't fall off. I take my cable needle and I'm going to move the next 4 stitches. So 1, 2, 3, and 4, and I'm going to keep them to the front of my work. Okay. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to knit the next 4 stitches, and I'm not pulling too tight because your cables need room to breathe, so you don't want to pull them very tight. And now I'm going to go ahead and knit the 4 off my cable needle. And you're just pretending that this cable needle is your normal left-hand needle. And you just you knit 4 of them across. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to finish out the row by knitting the last 5 stitches. Okay. Now when we turn our work, you'll see that this is the back end. You will never cable with this side facing you. Okay? You always want to make sure the right side, which is right over here, faces you. So I'm going to go ahead and work the next couple rows, and I will show you how row 7 works with our back cable. Okay, so I have just knit the first 5 stitches on row 7, and I'm all ready to cable my next cable, which will be a cable back. What I like to do is I'm going to bring the yarn into the purl position before I slip my stitches onto my cable needle. So now I'm going to slip the next 4 stitches, and you always slip them as if you purl. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and you're going to let them rest at the back of your work. Okay, so now I'm going to knit the next 4 stitches, and you'll see that the yarn is actually in front of my stitches when they're in the back. You don't want to wrap the yarn around them. And again, don't pull too tight, and we're going to knit the next 4 stitches. So I got 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, and now what we do is we're going to bring the yarn to the back of the cable needle, so it's in the knit position, and we're going to knit the next 4 stitches. 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that is your back cable. And then we pick up and we continue knitting for the rest of the row. Okay, so that's what you do when row 3 you're going to hold the cable needles to the front, row 7 you're going to hold them to the back, and that gives you this nice braided cable. Okay, you're going to continue working until your piece measures 16 inches, and I measure it with a slight stretch to it. And then I'm going to go ahead and show you how we're going to do a 3 needle bind off. Okay. Okay, so I have just finished the 16 inches, and you'll see that I have left my stitches on the needle, and I have stopped with the right side facing. So the instructions say that you have to pick up 22 stitches at the cast on edge, and they suggest doing this with a double pointed needle. If you don't have a double pointed needle, I'm going to show you how to do it with just a regular needle. So I'm going to take the needle that is empty right now, and I'm going to come down here. Now the important thing that you want to do is, since we're using not a double pointed needle, so we'll only be able to get stitches off the pointy end, you have to put them on so that they'll line up with the needle going the right way with your stitches that are still on here. So what we're going to do is I'm going to fold this here so that the right side of my work is facing me, and you'll notice my needle is pointing to the left. And along the cast on edge, I am just going to stick my needle in here, and I'm going to try and pick up 22 of these stitches, and we're going to pick them up from the back to the front. Okay, so we've got 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'm just trying to grab one of the loops. Okay, you'll see if you look at them a little bit, there'll be a flat, and then a little bump in the middle. That bump in the middle is what I'm picking up. It may take you a couple tries to do this to get all 22 stitches. No problem if you mess up, just take the needle out and then try again. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going for 7. It gets a little tricky when you get towards the cable part, just because it puckers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I'm going to scooch them down. 1, and then we want to go all the way to the edge for the 22nd. and all I've done was I have put them onto the needle. So now you'll see I have 2 needles with stitches on them going in the right direction. Now you want to bind off, let's see, holding the right sides together. Okay, so that means you'll have the wrong side facing you. Okay, and I'm just going to turn this over so that the needle with my working yarn is attached in the back. Now you're going to pick up a spare needle that you have. You want to use either the same size. This is a 9, so if you don't have a 9, you could do a 10 or you can do an 8. You don't want to go much more than one size up or down. And the way we do the 3 needle bind off is you're going to knit, and you're going to knit both sides together. So we're going to go into the stitch from the front, and they might be a little tight since they're on your cast on edge. So I go into the first stitch on the first needle, go into the second stitch, or the first stitch on the second needle. So I've gone through both of them, and then you wrap the yarn around and you bring it through just like you're knitting, and then you take those 2 stitches off. Okay, then you go to the next one, in through the front, in through the back, wrap around, bring it through, take those 2 off. Then we're going to play our leapfrog. We're going to hop the first stitch over the second stitch. Okay, and then we go ahead and we're going to knit 2 together again. So in through the front, in through the back, wrap the needle around, bring it through. Whoop, lost it. Okay, so we wrap around again, bring it through, those 2 come off, and then you hop the first one over the second one. And we're going to do this all the way across. So in through the front, in through the back, knit them, take them off, hop 1 across. Okay, it's a little tricky working with 3 needles because you're used to only 2, but it's still the same premise. So in through the front, in through the back, wrap around, bring through and off both needles, hop the first one over the second one. And you don't want to make this too tight, so just be a little bit loose on your binding off. Okay, those come off, pop up and over. And you're going to do this all the way until you reach the end of your row. Okay, so I'm all the way up to the last stitch, and again go in the front, go in the back, wrap around, and then we're gonna hop the last stitch over. Now this is when you would cut your yarn, pull tight, and then when we turn this inside out, you can see that the seam will be on the inside and your cable will have continued. Okay, so that is the 3 needle bind off. It gives you, yes, it does give you a seam, but the seam is on the inside, and your head warmer is all ready to wear.